Botany. Okay. Yeah. Monocot seed. Yesterday continuous topic. Monocot seed. In previous class we completed dicot seed structure, then monocot seed. Monocot seed is also called as endospermic seeds. And also called as albuminous seeds also. In previous class, seeds are classified into two types, dicot seed and monocot seed. In previous class, we completed dicot seed structure, all online students. Today we are going to discuss with last topics in sexual reproduction in flowering plant lesson, that is monocot seed. Monocot seed is also called as endospermic seed, which is also called as albuminous seeds. Listen. The best example of monocot seed is the maize. Maize seed is the best example of monocot seed. Maize, wheat, jowar is the best example, but in NCERT textbook given example is the maize. Expected question on the basis of maize only. Okay? And listen, this is monocot seed. In case of monocot seed, in the structure of monocot seed, this outer layer is the fruit wall, and below the fruit wall this is the seed coat. Just imagine, this is the monocot seed, outer layer is the fruit wall, below the fruit wall which one is present? Seed coat is present. See, listen, in case of monocot seed, this fruit wall and seed coat both fused with each other. Fruit wall and seed coat both fused with each other, not separated, both tightly attached or both fused with each other like this. Fruit wall and seed coat both fused with each other. That's why this monocot seed is also called as caryopsis. Very important word. Why monocot seed is called as caryopsis? What is the reason behind that one? Fruit wall and seed coat. Fruit wall and seed coat both fused with each other. That's why monocot seed is also called as caryopsis. Yes? No, in all, not only monocot maize, in other seed also both fused with each other. That's why monocot seeds, all monocot seeds is called as caryopsis. And listen, inside the monocot seed, endosperm is present. Imagine this is the endosperm. Inside the monocot seed, which one is present? Endosperm is present. Because of the presence of endosperm, Monocot seeds are also called as endospermic seed, which is also called as albuminous seeds also, because of the presence of endosperm. Because of the presence of endosperm, monocot seeds are also called as endospermic seed, which is also called as albuminous seeds. Albumin means endosperm. Clear? And this endosperm present in triploid condition, keep in your mind. In case of endosperm presence in triploid condition, why? Because it developed from pen. Primary endosperm nucleus is the triploid. From triploid pen to which one is developed? Endosperm is developed. That's why endosperm present in a triploid condition. Okay? And see, listen, this is the embryo. This is the embryo. Okay? What is this? This is the embryo. So in case of monocot seed, embryo is located or embryo pushed towards one end. It is not present in center. This embryo is pushed towards one end because of endosperm. This endosperm pushes the embryo towards one end. And see, this is the endosperm, this is the embryo, both separated by this one. Endosperm and embryo both separated by proteinaceous layer. That proteinaceous layer is called as alluron layer. Alluron layer is made up of protein. Alluron layer is made up of protein. Endosperm and embryo both separated by proteinaceous layer. That proteinaceous layer is called as alluron layer. And see, listen, what is the function of endosperm? Yesterday I explained already. Endosperm provide the nutrients for the development of embryo. That's why endosperm is called as a nourishment tissue. Why endosperm is called as a nourishment tissue? This endosperm provide the nutrients to developing embryo. It provides the nutrients to the development of embryo. That's why endosperm is considered as the nourishment tissue or nutritive tissue. Clear? And see, listen, this embryo I am taking outside. To study the structure of embryo, we are taking outside. And listen, in case of, this is the embryo. In the structure of embryo, one longitudinal axis is present. This embryo I am taking outside. In the structure of embryo, one longitudinal axis is present. This axis is called as embryonal axis. A longitudinal axis present in the structure of embryo. That axis is called as embryonal axis. In the structure of embryo, one longitudinal axis present. That longitudinal axis is called as embryonal axis. See, listen, this is the upper tip of embryonal axis. This is the lower tip of embryonal axis. This upper tip is called as plumule. This upper tip of embryonal axis is called as plumule. This lower tip of embryonal axis is called as radicle. The upper tip of embryonal axis is called as plumule. The lower tip of embryonal axis is called as radicle. Okay. See, listen. This plumule, listen carefully. This is the plumule. This plumule is separate. This plumule is protected by. This plumule is protected by one protective layer. That protective layer is called as coleoptile. Plumule is protected by one protective layer. That protective layer is called as coleoptile. Like that, radicle is also protected by one protective layer. That protective layer is called as coleorhiza. Okay. The upper tip of embryonal axis, see. The upper tip of embryonal axis is called as plumule. Plumule is protected by one protective layer. It is called as coleoptile. The lower tip of embryonal axis is called as radicle. Radicle is also protected by one protective layer. That protective layer is called as coleorhiza. And see, this plumule gives rise the shoot, and this radicle gives rise the root. Plumule is responsible to develop the shoot towards upper, and this radicle is responsible to produce the root towards the down. Clear? And this is the structure of monocot embryo. See, this is the structure of what? Monocot embryo. This is the structure of monocot embryo. Listen, listen. This embryo, this one, this embryo shape just like that of shield. The shape of embryo, the shape of monocot embryo just like that of shield. That's why this monocot embryo is also called as scutellum. Very important. The shape of embryo, the shape of embryo just like that of shield. The monocot embryo shape just like that of shield. That's why that embryo is also called as scutellum. Term is very, very important. Listen, listen. For example, here, why monocot seeds are called as endospermic seed? Because of the presence of endosperm in diagram, it is very clear. That's why only the seeds are called as endospermic seed. Sir, why endosperm is present here? What is the function of endosperm? It provides the nourishment to developing embryo. Mean this embryo consume the endosperm, not completely, incompletely consume. That's why 50% is remaining. For example, see, listen. Imagine this is the dicot seed, not monocot. This is the dicot seed and this is the embryo. This is the embryo. And imagine this is the monocot seed and this is the embryo. Just imagine. Okay? And this is the endosperm. What is this? This dotted portion is the endosperm. Where endosperm is present, where endosperm is absent. In dicot seed, endosperm is absent. That's why these dicot seeds are called as non-endospermic seed. Yesterday we explained. It is called as a non-endospermic seed. Here monocot seed, which one is present? Endosperm is very clear. That's why it is called as endospermic seed. Antena? Is it correct? Sir, why in dicot seed endosperm is absent? Why monocot seed endosperm is present? Simple reason. In dicot seed, this embryo completely consume the endosperm. Whatever endosperm is there, completely consumed by embryo in dicot seed, that's why endosperm is absent, so that it is called as non-endosperm. But here what happened? In monocot seed, this embryo incompletely consume the endosperm. That's why a small amount of endosperm is remaining. Okay, out of 100% of endosperm, 30% is consumed, 70% is remaining, 60% consumed, 40% is remaining. So this embryo incompletely, where in monocot seed? In monocot seed, this embryo incompletely or partially consume the endosperm. That's why some amount of endosperm is remaining. That's why only these monocot seeds are called as endospermic seed, which is also called as albuminous seeds ka cheptam. See, listen, one exemption is there. Generally monocots produces what? Generally monocots produces what? Endospermic seed. But one exemption is there, orchid. So orchids are the monocots. Generally orchids are the monocot. Monocots are capable to produce the what? Endospermic. But instead of endospermic, orchid produce the non-endospermic seed. It is the very, very important point. So generally orchids are the monocot. Instead of endospermic seed, orchid produces what? Endospermic seed. Okay, yeah, orchids are the monocot. Instead of endospermic, they produces what? Non-endospermic seed. This is the exemption, except orchid. Orchid is also called as epiphyte, so no need. So orchids produces non-endospermic seed, except orchid, remaining all monocots which capable to produces what? Endospermic seed or albuminous seeds. Okay, so this is the monocot seed, and in previous class we completed dicot seed only. So listen, in monocot seed, this fruit wall and seed coat both are fused with each other. That's why monocot seeds are called as caryopsis. Endosperm is very clear. What is the pylody? Triploid pylody of endosperm is present. That's why only it is called as endospermic seed. This endosperm push the embryo towards one end. This endosperm and embryo separated by alluran layer. Alluran layer is made up of protein, means endosperm and embryo both are separated by proteinaceous layer. That proteinaceous layer is called as alluran layer. And see, this structure of embryo we studied separately. In the structure of embryo, one longitudinal axis is present. It is called as embryonal axis. This is the upper tip, this is the lower tip. Upper tip is the plumule, lower tip is the radicle. Plumule is responsible to develop the shoot, and radicle is responsible to develop the root. Plumule protected by protective layer coleoptile, and the radicle protected by the protective layer coleorhiza. And this embryo shape just like the top shield. That's why only this embryo of monocot seed is also called as scutellum. Why endosperm is remaining? Why endosperm is present? Embryo incompletely consume the endosperm. That's why small amount of endosperm is remaining. That's why only these seeds are called as endospermic. And the best example, maize is the best example of monocot seed. Clear? And listen, three small topics very important. Parthenogenesis, parthenogenesis, parthenocarpy, and apomixis. What is partheno? Partheno means without fertilization. What is partheno? What is the meaning of partheno? Without fertilization. Sir, what is parthenogenesis? What is parthenocarpy? What is apomixis? Simple. Listen, parthenogenesis means development of embryo. Development of what? Embryo or organism, anyone. Development of embryo or organism without fertilization, without the process of fertilization. Generally embryo is developed after the fertilization. Because of fertilization, zygote. Generally, see, listen, this is the male gamete, this is the female gamete, this is the male gamete Mg, this is the female gamete, both fertilized with each other. General case, both participates in fertilization, results, it produces what? Zygote. Zygote is developed into what? Zygote is developed into embryo. Embryo then developed into what? Organism. Generally, this is the sexual reproduction process we know. So, generally, embryo is developed after the process of fertilization. But here, what is parthenogenesis? Without fertilization, development of embryo. Development of embryo or development of organism without fertilization is called as parthenogenesis. Parthenocarpy, same again. Development of fruit without fertilization. Very good. Without fertilization. Development of fruit without fertilization is called as parthenocarpy. And see, whatever fruits are developed without fertilization, that fruits are called as parthenocarpic fruit. Generally, parthenocarpic fruits are the seedless. Banana is the best example. Grape is the best example. Parthenocarpic means, what is parthenocarpy? What is parthenocarpy? Development of fruit without fertilization is called as parthenocarpy. Generally, parthenocarpic fruits are the seedless fruit. Seeds are absent. Clear? And apomixis. See, same, related. Development of fruit. Sorry. Development of seed without fertilization. Okay. What is apomixis? Development of seed without fertilization. These three terms are very, very important. Development of embryo or organism without fertilization is called as parthenogenesis. Development of fruit without fertilization is called as parthenocarpy. Parthenocarpic fruits are the seedless fruit. Apomixis means development of seed without fertilization. These three terms are related to without fertilization only. Clear? And see, listen, perisperm. Put the small topic, perisperm. Perisperm, P-E-R-I. Sir, what is perisperm, sir? Listen, this is the very important. Please listen carefully. Imagine, just I am taking the rough diagram. Imagine this is the ovule. Just only I am taking rough diagram. This is the ovule, already we studied. Inside the ovule, one fertile tissue is present, this dotted one. It is called as nucellus. Inside the ovule, one fertile tissue, one diploid and fertile tissue is present. It is called as nucellus. Okay? Listen, after the process of fertilization, these ovules are developed into what? Seeds. After the process of fertilization, what happened? Ovules are developed into what? Seed. See, here I am taking diagram. After the process of what? After the process of fertilization. Imagine this is the ovule. After the process of, see, this is the ovule. After the process of what? Fertilization. These ovules are developed into seed, generally. After the process of fertilization, ovules are developed into seed, ovary developed into fruit, that one we know. See, listen, generally, when you observe the seed, dicot seed we completed. See, here monocot seeds we completed. Here we given any labeling of perisperm? No. Because of perisperm, what is perisperm, sir? Listen. Generally, when seeds are formed, this nucellus is absent. Generally, nucellus present in ovule, it is absent in seed. Generally, nucellus is absent, nucellus present in ovule, it is absent in seed. But in some seed, this nucellus is remaining. Generally, nucellus is absent in seed, but in some plant, nucellus is present in seed. That nucellus is called as perisperm. That's why only it is called as persistent, permanent present. Persistent nucellus. Persistent nucellus is called as perisperm. Example is the very, very important. Black pepper. Black pepper is the best example. Black pepper and beet is the best example. Persistent nucellus. Generally, nucellus is absent in seed. But in some plant, especially in black pepper and beet, that nucellus is also present in seed. That's why that ruminant or persistent nucellus. Ruminant or persistent nucellus is called as perisperm. This perisperm is present in which plants? The best examples are the black pepper and beet. Clear? So this is the sexual reproduction of flowering plant lesson, and NEET oriented and MSET oriented. It is the very, very important lesson. Okay. Then go for the next new lesson, that is the living world. Okay. So living world. New lesson, that is the living world. Okay. So the scientist Ernest Mayr, very important and compulsory expected question. Ernest Mayr, scientist, considered as the 20th century Darwin. Very important. Who? Ernest Mayr, considered as the 20th century Darwin. He introduced, Ernest Mayr introduced concept of biological species. The species, every classification starts with species. Basic unit of classification is called as species. In this lesson only we will discuss species very deeply. The concept of biological species is also introduced by the scientist who? Ernest Mayr. For example, if you can take one living organism, main 5 important characters are present. The living characters: growth, second one reproduction, metabolism, cellular organization, and fifth, consciousness. These 5 are the living characters. These 5 characters are the living character. But these 5 characters are not a defining property of living. For example, if you can take one living organism, there are 5 living characters we know, which include: first one, growth, reproduction, metabolism, cellular organization and consciousness. These 5 characters are the living character, but in that 5 character, some characters are not a defining characters of living, some characters are the defining property of living. So which ones are? See, growth and reproduction, not a defining property. It is not defining property of living organism. It is not a defining property. Which one? Growth and reproduction, not a defining property of what? Living organism. Means to define the living organism, we are not use the term growth and reproduction. To define, number of students confused here. The organism which shows the growth, it is called as living. We are the example, we are showing the growth. Up to 21 years or 20 years we are showing the growth. That's why only we are the example of living organism. But number of students are confused here. For example, take one mountain, ice mountain. Ice mountain also will grow. Because of growth, can you say that one is the living? No. So that's why growth and reproduction is not a defining property. It is the character of living organism. It is occurred in living organism, that's why it is the character. Reproduction and growth is occurred in the living organism, that's why only it is the character of living organism. But to define the living organism, we are not using the term growth and reproduction. But no, we will explain. Okay, one by one. So next one, metabolism, cellular organization and consciousness. These 3 are the defining properties. Defining properties of what? Living organism. To define the living organism, you have to use the 3 terms. Which one? Metabolism, cellular organization and consciousness. But all are the characters of living organism. See, listen, concept is very important. These 5 are the characters of living organism. But to define the living organism, we are not use the term growth and reproduction, but we are using only which one? Metabolism, cellular organization and consciousness. One by one we will discuss why it is not a defining property. Then only you will get one idea. Okay. So first starts with what? Growth. First starts with what? First character of living. Which one? Growth. First living character, what is that? Growth. What is growth? Growth is the permanent. It is the permanent, reversible or irreversible? It is the irreversible reaction. Means once growth is occurred, it never come back. Is it correct? It is the permanent change in the living organism and it is the irreversible change. Is called as what? Growth. And see, listen, in case of plants, growth occurred up to death, correct? Generally, plant shows growth up to death. But in case of animals, growth occurred up to certain age. After that certain age, there is no growth in animal. In case of human being, 20 or 21, after that we are not showing any growth. But not like that of plant. Plant shows growth every day. Up to death also they will grow. What is the reason behind that one? Can you say anyone? Simple reason. Plant shows growth up to death because of plants consist of meristematic tissues. Because of meristematic tissue. What is meristematic tissue? The tissue which divide continuously, the tissue is called as meristematic. Means division capacity containing tissue is called as meristematic tissue. Plants consist of what? Meristematic tissue. That's why plant shows the growth up to death. But that meristematic tissues are absent in animal, and in case of animals, see, in case of animal, growth under the control of hormones. In case of animals, growth under the control of what? Hormones. In case of animals, growth under the control of hormone. In our body, that hormones produced up to certain age only. After 20 years or 21 years, there is no growth hormones produced by you. That's why only growth is prevented. What is the reason behind that one? In plant, growth occurred up to date because of the presence of meristematic tissue. This is the one reason. Why animal shows growth up to certain age? Because of it is the control of hormone. So that hormones produced up to certain age, that's why only growth is also occurred up to certain age. After that there is no growth. And the compulsory question, the twin characters of growth, very important. Twin characters of growth, very important. First one, increase in mass. Increase in mass and increase in number. Increase in number. Increase in number. These are the twin characters of growth. Compulsory, expected, NEET and MCET question. What are the twin characters of growth? Increase in mass. Mass means weight. And increase in number. Yes. For example, see. For example, first these many cells are present. See, how many cells? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When 6 cells are present, 1 kg, I am giving mass is 1 kg. For example, if number increased from 6 to 14 or 15 or 20, 25, 30, automatically the weight is also increases. If number increases, automatically mass is also increased. That's why both are twin character. What are the twin character? What are the twin characters of growth? Increase in mass and increase in number. Ernest Mayr, scientist, is considered as the what? 20th century Darwin, and he introduced the what? The concept of biological species. Clear? And the 5 characters are considered as the living characters, which include what? Growth, reproduction, metabolism, cellular organization and consciousness. In that, what are the defining properties? Metabolism, consciousness, cellular. What are not a defining property? Growth and reproduction. What is growth? It is the permanent and irreversible. In plant, growth occurred up to why? Meristematic. But in case of animal, certain age only because of under the control of hormone. And what are the twin characters of growth? Increase in number, increase in mass. Clear? See, listen, very important point. See, generally, growth occurred in living organism and also it is occurred in non-living object too. So generally growth is reported in living organism as well as non-living object too also. Living organism growth we know. Plants every day shows growth. Organism every day shows growth. Animals every day growth. Human beings also shows the growth. Means growth is reported in living organism. First statement is no confusion. Generally you know. Plants grow. Animals will grow, human beings will grow, the microorganisms also will grow. So generally living organism shows the growth. Okay, I am also accepted and you also accepted. And what I am saying, growth is also reported in non-living object too also. How? For example, this is one ice mountain. For example, this is one ice mountain. Today, 50 meters height. Today we measured it is the 50 meters of height. Okay. Every day ice added here. Because of snowfall, every day ice added. After 1 week you can come and see the height of this ice mountain from 50 to 70 meters. Increased 50 to 70 meters. Here also growth is occurred. Here also growth occurred from 50 meters to 70 meters. Because of the presence of growth, can you say ice mountain is the living? No. How non-living object to show growth? How non-living object to showing the growth? By addition of what? By addition of external material. Correct? By addition of external material, the non-living objects are also showing the growth. For example, if growth is reported in only living organism, that time also we are using it is the defining property. For example, see, listen. For example, growth is reported in only living organism, then we can say growth is also defining property. It is the character and defining property antam. But ikkada growth is reported not only living, it is also reported in non-living object. Why? How non-living object to showing the growth? By addition of external material. For example, this is one soil boulder. For example, this is one soil boulder. Every day soil is added, automatically size will increase. Can you say that one is the living? Ice mountain is also showing the growth. For example, this is one board. Add one more board, add one more board, add one more. Here also growth is occurred. Can you say this is the living? No. How non-living object to showing the growth? That question is very important. By addition of external material. If you add the external material, automatically non-living is also showing the growth. So that's why growth is reported in both living and non-living. That's why growth is not a defining property. It is not a defining property of living organism. If it is reported in only living organism, then we can say it is also defining property. But here what happened? It is reported in both living and non-living. That's why only it is not a defining property. Okay. So it is the growth only character of living organism. It is the character of living organism only, but not a defining property. Growth occurred in living organism, that's why it is the character. But to define the living organism, we are not using the term growth. Because of along with the living, it is also reported in non-living object. Clear? Easy? Any doubt? And come to the second one. Second, what is the second character? First one, growth. What is the second one? Reproduction. Okay? See. Reproduction. So reproduction. Sir, what is reproduction? What is reproduction? What is reproduction? Everyone know. Production of progeny. Production of progeny. Production of progeny or offspring or daughters is called as reproduction. Clear? Production of what? Production of progeny or offspring is called as reproduction. See, reproduction is mainly classified into two types. First one is the asexual reproduction and second one is the sexual reproduction mainly. So production of progeny or offspring from the parent is called as reproduction. The reproduction is mainly classified into two types. First one is the asexual reproduction and second one is the sexual reproduction. Sir, what is asexual reproduction? What is sexual reproduction? Simple, see. Production of progeny. Production of what? Production of progeny by the involvement of single parent. Only one parent is involved. Production of progeny by the involvement of only one parent. See, listen like this. See, this is the parent. It divides to produce the two daughters. Listen. Here progeny produced by the involvement of only one parent, that's why this type of reproduction is called as asexual reproduction. But what is sexual reproduction? Production of progeny by the involvement of biparent or single parent. Both possibilities. Here students confused. Sexual reproduction, students consider biparent is compulsory, mother and father. Female and male is compulsory. No. Single parent is also required. If plant is the monoecious plant, one parent is sufficient. If animal is the hermapodia means both sexes present in single animal. Here also one parent is sufficient. If plant is monoecious plant, one parent is sufficient for sexual reproduction. If animal is the hermapodia animal, single parent is sufficient. Sexual reproduction not compulsory, required by parent. There is a possibility of single parent also, but in asexual compulsory single parent. So what is the main difference between the asexual and sexual? In asexual, production of progeny by the involvement of single parent, but in sexual reproduction, production of progeny by the involvement of biparent or single parent. And second main difference, see, in asexual reproduction, no gamete formation, very good. No gamete formation, no male gamete formed, no female gametes are formed. No male and female gametes are formed in asexual reproduction, but in sexual reproduction, compulsory gamete formation. Without gamete formation, there is no sexual reproduction. Gametes are compulsory formed in sexual reproduction. Means male and female gamete, male gamete and female gamete. Male and female gametes are compulsory formed in sexual reproduction, but there is no gametes formed in asexual reproduction. And last difference, see, listen. This is the progeny, correct? Listen. This is the progeny, this is the parent. So in asexual reproduction, whatever progeny is formed, it is completely identical to parent. That's why that progeny is called as clones also. What is clone? Same to the parent. So in asexual reproduction, whatever progeny is formed, this progeny is completely identical to parent. Whatever progeny is formed in asexual reproduction, that progeny is completely identical to parent. That's why that progeny is called as clones also. Why progeny is identical to parent? Why this progeny is identical to parent? Because of here involved only one parent. But in sexual reproduction, whatever progeny formed, that progeny not identical to parent and among themselves. Whatever progeny produced by sexual reproduction, here too, the progeny which is produced by asexual reproduction, that progeny is identical to parent because of the involvement of single parent. But in case of sexual reproduction, whatever progeny produced, it is not identical to parent and among themselves also. For example, take human beings. Human beings are the product of sexual reproduction. We are the example of sexual reproduction of mother and father. We are not exactly copied to mother. We are not exactly copied to father. But in some characters, like mother, like father, not exact copy. That's why we are not identical to our. So our body is not identical to mother, not identical to father. In our body, whatever characters are present, that characters like that of mother and father, not exact copies. That's why we are not identical to parent. And take your body with your sibling. Take your body, both are same. Take your body, compare with your sister, same? No. And among themselves also different, and also we are not different to the parent. That's why only that statement. So that progeny is not identical to parent in sexual, identical to asexual reproduction. And one more type of reproduction is also there. What is that? Vegetative reproduction. Vegetative reproduction is also comes under the asexual, because of in vegetative reproduction also only single parent involved, no gametes were formed. In vegetative reproduction also, single parent involved, no gametes are formed. That's why only vegetative reproduction is also comes under the category of asexual only. That's why only we are not studying mainly how many types of reproduction, only two. That is asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Clear? And see, listen, generally, very important, generally reproduction is occurred in living organism. Generally reproduction is occurred in living organism. See, I am writing here like that. See, listen, very important. So generally reproduction is reported in living organism, but it is not present in non-living object. Reproduction is reported in only living organism. See, in case of in this board there is a reproduction, no. In this bench, in this stair there is no. And means this reproduction is reporting in living organism only, not in non-living. Even though also, see, even though also it not a defining property. It is not a defining property of living. To define the living organism, we are not using the term reproduction. Sir, it is reported in only living organism. Why you are not using? Here what I said, see, what I said in growth point of view, why growth is not a defining property, what I said? Because of it reported in both, that's why only it is not a defining property. But here what happened? Here what happened? It is reported in only living but not in non-living. Even though also we are not using the term reproduction as a defining property. Why, sir? Yes, reproduction is reported in living organism but not in all living organism. For example, take moles. Take moles. Sterile worker honeybees and infertile humans. These all are living or not? Moles are living. Sterile worker honeybees also living, and infertile human beings are also living. But here reproduction is absent. But reproduction is absent. If reproduction is present, statement student, reproduction is present in living organism, not in non-living, even though also we are not using the term reproduction as a defining. Why? Because yes, reproduction is present in living organism but not in all. Or if it is reported in all living organism, that time we can say it is the living, but here exemption is there. For example, take moles, sterile worker honeybees and infertile human being, they are unable to reproduce. They are unable to reproduce. Reproduction is absent, but these are the living. See, can you say because of the absence of reproduction, these organisms are called as non-living? No. So, it is, this reproduction is not reported in all living organisms. Reproduction is not reported in all living organisms. That's why only it is not a defining property. Why growth is not a defining property? Why growth is not a defining property? Growth is reported in living and non-living. That's why only it is not. Why reproduction is not a defining property? It is reported in living but not all living organisms. Exemptions are there. Moles, sterile worker honeybees and infertile are unable to reproduce, unable to participate in reproduction. That's why only reproduction is not a defining property. Clear? Continue, we'll see tomorrow. Okay?